I will never forget the look on my father's face when the projector screen lit up behind him at the Riverside Community Center. There he was, standing at the podium in his rented tuxedo, holding the crystal trophy they had just given him for Business Mentor of the Year. The applause was still echoing through the ballroom when the first bank statement appeared on the 20-foot screen. His smile froze. His eyes went wide. And then he saw the next slide, and the next, and the next. 20 years of wire transfers, every single one documented, every single dollar I had sent him while he told everyone in town that he had built my company, that I was just the pretty face, that without his genius, I would be nothing. The room went silent as people started reading the numbers. $10,000, $15,000, $22,000, month after month, year after year. While he drove the Mercedes I bought him and vacationed in Cabo and told reporters that he was the mastermind behind Sterling Consulting Group. "Jennifer," he whispered into the microphone, his voice cracking, "please, not like this, not in front of everyone." But that is exactly why I chose this moment, because he had built his reputation in front of everyone. He had stolen my achievements in front of everyone. And now, in front of the 200 people who had believed his lies, he would finally face the truth. That moment, seeing him shake as the evidence scrolled across the screen, was worth every second of the 20 years I spent being invisible. But to understand how we got here, I need to tell you the whole story. My name is Jennifer Hartwell. I am 53 years old. I built Sterling Consulting Group from nothing, working out of a spare bedroom with a laptop and a phone, and turned it into a firm that now employs 47 people and generates over $12 million in annual revenue. I did this while supporting my father financially since I was 32 years old. I paid his mortgage. I paid his country club dues. I covered his medical bills, his car payments, his credit card debt. And for 20 years, he told anyone who would listen that the company was really his idea, that he had mentored me through every decision, that without his business acumen, I would have failed in the first year. I remember the exact moment it started. I was 32, and I had just landed my first major client, a healthcare conglomerate that needed organizational restructuring. The contract was worth $280,000. It was the breakthrough I'd been working toward for 3 years. I was so proud. I called my father immediately, before I even called my best friend Rachel. I wanted him to be the first to know. "Dad," I said, my voice shaking with excitement, "I got the Harrison Health contract, $280,000. This is it. This is really happening." There was a pause. Then he said, "Well, you used the proposal structure I helped you develop, right? The one we worked on together?" We had not worked on anything together. He had looked at one early draft 2 years before and told me it was too complicated. But in that moment, standing in my tiny office with the signed contract in my hand, I was too happy to correct him. "Sure, Dad," I said. "Your advice really helped." That was my first mistake, agreeing to a lie just to keep the peace, just to hear some pride in his voice. Within a month, he was telling his friends at the golf course that he had structured the entire proposal, that I had needed his expertise to close the deal. I heard about it from my Uncle Robert, who called to congratulate me and mentioned how wonderful it was that my father had such a sharp business mind. I should have corrected it then. I should have called my father and told him to stop. But I did not, because part of me, the part that had spent my entire childhood trying to make him proud, wanted to believe that maybe he really did see my success as his success, that maybe this was his way of feeling connected to me. I was wrong. The pattern continued. My company grew. I hired employees. I secured bigger contracts. And every time I achieved something, my father found a way to claim partial credit. He told people he was my silent partner, that he advised me on hiring decisions, that major clients came through his connections. None of it was true. But he said it with such confidence, such charm, that people believed him, and I kept paying his bills. When he called to say his roof needed repairs, I sent $8,000. When he wanted to upgrade to a newer car, I covered the down payment. When he joined the country club and could not afford the initiation fee, I wrote the check for $15,000 without hesitation. I told myself I was being a good daughter, that family takes care of family, that his pride was fragile, and if letting him take some credit made him feel valued, what was the harm? The harm was that I was disappearing. My accomplishments were becoming his stories. My hard work was becoming his wisdom, and I was paying him for the privilege of erasing me. But I did not see it clearly then. I was too busy trying to be enough, trying to earn the kind of unconditional pride that he gave so freely to other people, but never quite to me. Stay until the end and you will see exactly how I made sure he would never forget what he did to me. You will see how I took back my story, my reputation, and my dignity. And you will see the moment when the man who spent 20 years making himself look big by making me look small finally understood what he had lost. If you have ever been treated like an ATM machine by someone who should have been your biggest supporter, stay with me. This story is for you. The pattern had actually started long before I built my company. I just did not recognize it for what it was until much later. Growing up, I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the daughter who got straight A's, who never caused trouble, who helped around the house without being asked. My younger brother Marcus was the charming one, the athlete, the one who could make my father laugh with a single joke. I remember being 14 years old studying for the state mathematics competition that I had worked all year to qualify for. The final round was on a Saturday in April. I had been preparing for months. My teacher said I had a real chance to place in the top 3. That same Saturday, Marcus had a baseball game. Not a championship, not even a playoff. Just a regular season game in a league where every kid got a participation trophy at the end. My father took Marcus to his game. He told me I could get a ride to the competition with my teacher. "You will be fine, Jenny," he said. "You are always fine. Marcus needs me there. The scouts might be watching." There were no scouts. Marcus was 12. But I got my ride with Mrs. Patterson, and I competed, and I placed second in the entire state. When I came home with my medal, my father was on the phone telling his brother about Marcus's home run. He glanced at my medal. "That is great, sweetie," he said, and went back to his call. I told myself it did not matter, that I was being selfish for wanting more than a glance, that Marcus needed the attention because he was younger, more social, less self-sufficient than me. But it did matter. It mattered every single time. When I graduated high school as valedictorian, my father came to the ceremony but left early because Marcus had a party to go to. When I got my first job at 22, making $43,000 a year at a consulting firm, my father told his friends it was a nice little starter position. When Marcus dropped out of college after one semester to find himself, my father called it brave and paid for him to backpack through Europe for 6 months. I paid my own way through graduate school. I worked full-time and took classes at night. It took me 4 years to get my MBA, and when I finished, my father's response was, "Well, now maybe you can finally get a real career going." I had been working in my career for 8 years at that point, but I kept trying. I kept hoping that the next achievement would be the one that made him see me, really see me. When I started Sterling Consulting Group, I was so excited to tell him. I thought this would be different. This was big. This was entrepreneurial. This was exactly the kind of bold move he always praised when other people did it. "I am starting my own firm," I told him over dinner. "I have 3 clients already lined up and enough savings to cover 6 months of expenses." He put down his fork. "Do you really think that is wise? The failure rate for new businesses is over 80%. You have a stable job. Why risk it?" "I have been planning this for 2 years," I said. "I have done the market research. I have the expertise. I know I can make this work." He sighed. "Well, it is your funeral. Just do not come crying to me when it falls apart." 18 months later, when my company was thriving and I had hired my first 2 employees, he started telling people it had been his idea. The money requests started small. He called one afternoon, sounding stressed. Jenny, I hate to ask, but the property tax bill came and it is higher than I expected. Could you help me out? Just this once. I will pay you back next month. I sent him $3,000. He never paid me back. He never mentioned it again. 3 months later, he needed help with a medical bill, then car repairs, then the roof. Each time he said it was temporary. Each time he promised to pay me back. Each time I believed him because I wanted to believe that my father would not lie to me. My best friend Rachel saw what was happening before I did. She had known me since college, had watched me build my business, had celebrated every milestone with me. One evening, we were having dinner at her house when my phone rang. It was my father. I excused myself and took the call in her hallway. "Jenny, I need a favor," he said. "The country club membership is up for renewal. It is important for my networking. $15,000 for the year. Can you cover it?" $15,000 so he could play golf and have lunch with his friends while telling them he was a business consultant. I sent the money. When I came back to the table, Rachel looked at me. "How much this time?" "It is not a big deal," I said. "Jennifer." She used my full name, which she only did when she was serious. "How much have you sent him in the last year?" I did not want to add it up, but she pulled out her phone and made me go through my bank statements right there. We counted every transfer, every check, every wire. $78,000 in 12 months. "He is using you," Rachel said quietly, "and you are letting him." "He is my father," I said. "Family helps family." "Does he help you? Has he ever once offered to invest in your company? Has he ever promoted your services to his country club friends? Has he ever even thanked you?" I could not answer because the truth was no. He had never done any of those things. Instead, he took credit for what I built. I found out later, through a friend of a friend, that he had been introduced at a Chamber of Commerce event as the business mind behind Sterling Consulting Group, that he had stood up, smiled, and accepted the recognition without correcting anyone. Meanwhile, I was working 70-hour weeks to keep my company growing. I was managing clients, overseeing projects, hiring staff, handling payroll. I was doing it all while my father played golf on my dime and told people that I would not have made it without him. The worst part was not the money. I could afford to support him. My company was successful. The worst part was the invisibility. Every achievement I earned, he claimed. Every success I built, he reframed as evidence of his guidance. And I stayed quiet because some broken part of me still believed that if I just gave enough, achieved enough, supported him enough, he would finally look at me the way he looked at Marcus. With uncomplicated pride, with unconditional approval. Marcus, who called twice a year. Marcus, who had never held a job for longer than 18 months. Marcus, who had borrowed money from my father that he never repaid, but was still called ambitious and creative, while I was just the reliable one who paid the bills. If your own father made you feel like you did not exist unless you were being useful to him, would you keep trying to earn his love, or would you finally stop? The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon in September. I had just returned from my oncologist appointment. Stage 2 breast cancer. Treatable, they said. Excellent prognosis with surgery and radiation. But the word cancer echoes differently when you are 52 years old and sitting alone in a doctor's office because you did not want to worry anyone until you knew for sure. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot for 20 minutes just breathing, processing, planning the treatment schedule around my work commitments, wondering how to tell my team, thinking about who I needed to call first. I called my father. "Dad," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I need to tell you something. I got some medical news today. They found cancer, breast cancer. It is early stage, and the doctors say the prognosis is very good, but I am going to need surgery and—" "Jesus, Jenny," he interrupted. "Why are you telling me this over the phone? This is the kind of news you deliver in person." I was silent for a moment. "I just came from the doctor. I am still in the parking lot. I wanted you to know right away." "Well, how long have you known something was wrong? Why did you not tell me you were having tests done?" I did not want to worry you until I had answers." He sighed, that particular sigh that meant I had disappointed him somehow. "Of course you did not tell me. You never tell me anything important. You just go off and handle everything yourself and then expect everyone to just deal with it." I felt something crack inside my chest, and it had nothing to do with the cancer. "I should let you go," I said quietly. "I have some calls to make." "Wait, Jenny. I did not mean— Look, this is just a shock. When is the surgery?" 3 weeks, October 4th. 3 weeks? Okay, I will clear my calendar. I will be there." He sounded sincere. For a moment, I felt that old familiar hope. Maybe this would be different. Maybe when it really mattered, he would show up. "Thank you, Dad. That means a lot." We hung up, and I sat there feeling hollow. Not from the cancer diagnosis, from the fact that even in that moment he had made it about how I had inconvenienced him by calling instead of driving to his house to deliver bad news. I called Rachel next. She cried with me, made me promise to send her all my appointment details, and told me she would be there for every single one. Then I called my team and arranged coverage for my recovery period. Then I went home, made tea, and tried to convince myself that everything would be fine. 2 days later, I drove to my father's house to drop off some financial documents he had asked for, something about his homeowner's insurance. I had copies made at my office. I let myself in with the key he had given me years ago. "Dad?" I called out. No answer. His car was in the driveway, so I knew he was home. I walked toward his study and heard his voice. He was on the phone, speaking in that jovial tone he used with his friends. No, I am not worried about the surgery," he was saying. "Jenny is strong. She will be fine. Honestly, the timing might work out well for me." I froze in the hallway. "Yeah, I have been thinking about this for a while now," he continued. "The company is worth what? 12 million? More? She built it with my guidance, my connections, my business model. If something happens to her, God forbid, of course, but if it does, I need to make sure I am protected, that I get what is rightfully mine." My hand was on the doorframe. I could not move. "Marcus is useless, we both know that, but I am her father. I helped build that business. She would not have gotten anywhere without my mentorship. I have been talking to a lawyer friend, just quietly, making sure that if she becomes incapacitated, or if the cancer is worse than they are saying, I have legal standing to claim partial ownership." The other person said something I could not hear. My father laughed. "Come on, Jim. I am not saying I want something bad to happen. I am just being practical. She never got married, no kids. Who else is going to inherit? I am just making sure Marcus does not somehow weasel his way into getting everything. That business should come back to me. I am the one who made it possible." I stepped back from the doorway. Quietly, carefully. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I walked back through the house, out the front door, and sat in my car. The insurance documents were still in my hand. 20 years. 20 years of supporting him, of paying his bills, funding his lifestyle, quietly accepting his lies about building my company. And now, while I was facing cancer surgery, he was talking to lawyers about claiming my business, about what he could take from me if I became incapacitated. He did not call to check how I was feeling. He did not offer to go to appointments with me. He was not clearing his calendar to support me. He was positioning himself to benefit from my potential death. I sat there for a long time. I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not even feel shocked, really. Somewhere deep down, I think I had always known that his love was conditional, that I was valuable to him only for what I could provide, but hearing it spoken out loud in his own words while I was preparing for cancer surgery, that crystallized something. I was done. Done hoping he would change. Done believing that the next achievement or the next check would finally be enough. Done disappearing myself to make room for his ego. I drove home. I made a list of every wire transfer, every check, every payment I had made to him over the past 20 years. I pulled bank statements going back to the beginning. I documented every time he had claimed credit for my work in public, every article that quoted him as my mentor, every introduction where he had accepted recognition that belonged to me. I called my lawyer, not to ask for advice, to tell him exactly what I needed. I need every financial transaction between my father and me documented and organized for presentation. I need a timeline of his public claims about my business. I need everything legally protected so that he cannot touch my company under any circumstances. And I need it done before my surgery. My lawyer, David, had known me for 15 years. He had handled my business contracts from the beginning. He was quiet for a moment. "Jennifer, what happened?" "I am taking back my story," I said, "and I am making sure everyone knows the truth." That night, I did not cry. I did not beg. I started planning. The awards dinner was 6 weeks away. The Riverside Community Center had already announced that my father was receiving the Business Mentor of the Year award. He had called to tell me about it, saying he hoped I would attend to support him the way he had always supported me. I told him I would be there. I did not tell him what else would be there. The evidence, the truth, the reckoning. If you were in my place, would you walk away quietly, or would you make sure they felt every consequence of every lie they had ever told? David worked quickly. Within a week, I had a complete financial audit sitting on my desk. 20 years of payments organized by category. Housing costs, $247,000. Vehicle expenses, $93,000. Country club and recreation, $112,000. Medical and personal expenses, $68,000. Miscellaneous requests, $81,000. Total, $601,000. Over $500,000 that I had given my father while he told the world he had built my success. But the money was only part of the story. David's team had also compiled every public mention of my father, claiming credit for Sterling Consulting Group. Newspaper interviews where he was quoted as my business advisor. Chamber of Commerce introductions where he accepted recognition as a mentor. LinkedIn posts where he listed himself as a founding consultant for my company. He had never been an employee, never an investor, never a partner. He had contributed exactly $0 and zero labor to my business, but he had built an entire public persona around being the mastermind behind my success. "This is airtight," David said during our meeting. "If you want to pursue legal action for defamation or fraud, we have everything we need." "I do not want to sue him," I said. "I want something better than that." I told him about the awards dinner, about my plan to present the evidence publicly in front of everyone who had believed my father's lies. David was quiet for a moment. "Jennifer, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do it this way? Once you do this, there is no taking it back. Your relationship with your father will be—" "What relationship?" I interrupted. "The one where I pay his bills and he takes credit for my life? The one where I face cancer and he calls lawyers to figure out how to claim my company? That relationship is already over, David. I am just making sure everyone else knows it too." He nodded slowly. "Okay, then let me help you do it right." We spent the next 3 weeks preparing the presentation. David had a colleague who specialized in forensic accounting create clear, undeniable visual evidence. Bank statements with my account numbers blurred, but the payment amounts and dates highlighted. A timeline showing my company's growth alongside my father's financial requests. Screenshots of his public claims next to the actual facts. The hardest part was getting access to the awards dinner presentation system. The Riverside Community Center was hosting the event, and they had a strict policy about approved content only. That is where Rachel came in. Rachel worked in event planning and had connections throughout the county. She made some calls, pulled some favors, and within 2 days she had befriended the woman coordinating the awards ceremony. "Her name is Patricia," Rachel told me over coffee. "She is very sweet, very organized, very eager to make sure the event goes smoothly." "Can you get our presentation into the system?" "Already done. I told her you wanted to surprise your father with a tribute video. She thought it was so thoughtful that you wanted to honor him publicly. She has it queued up to play right after he accepts the award. I looked at Rachel. You are a dangerous woman. Only when someone I love has been hurt, she said, squeezing my hand. Are you absolutely sure about this, Jen? Your surgery is in 2 weeks. You should be resting, focusing on your recovery, not orchestrating public confrontations. The surgery is exactly why I am doing this now, I said. If something goes wrong, if the cancer is worse than they think, I need to know that I told the truth, that I did not spend my whole life being erased by a man who was supposed to protect me. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Nothing is going to go wrong. You are going to be fine. I know, I said, even though neither of us could really know. But either way, he does not get to keep lying about who built my life. Not anymore. The surgery went well. Stage 2, clear margins, excellent prognosis. I woke up in recovery with Rachel sitting beside my bed, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself cry. Not from fear, from relief. My father called the hospital room that evening. How did it go? He asked. Good. The surgeon said everything looks very positive. That is great news, Jenny. Really great. Listen, I wanted to talk to you about something. I have been thinking about the business, and with your health situation, maybe it makes sense for me to take a more active role. You know, officially. We could draw up some papers, make me a consultant or an advisor, something that protects the company if you need to step back for treatment. I stared at the ceiling. Dad, I am going to be fine. I do not need to step back. I know. But just in case. It would give me some legal standing to make decisions if you are incapacitated, just temporarily, just to keep things running smoothly. He wanted it in writing now. He wanted legal claim to my company while I was still in a hospital bed recovering from cancer surgery. Let me think about it, I said. Sure, no rush. Well, actually, my lawyer said it would be good to have something in place before the end of the month, just for tax purposes, and I need to rest now, Dad. Right. Of course. Feel better, sweetheart. He had not come to the hospital. He had not offered to help with my recovery. He had called to talk about getting legal control of my business. I hung up and looked at Rachel. I cannot wait to see his face, I said. The awards dinner was scheduled for 3 weeks after my surgery. David wanted me to postpone, to give myself more time to heal. But I had already confirmed my attendance, already paid for a table for 10 that included Rachel, David, my executive team from Sterling, and my Uncle Robert, the only family member who had ever really seen my father for what he was. I bought a new dress, deep blue, elegant, professional. I had my hair done. I wanted to look powerful, healthy, completely in control. My father called 2 days before the event. I hope you are still planning to come, he said. It would mean a lot to have you there. After all, none of this would have been possible without you supporting me all these years. The irony was so thick I almost laughed. I will be there, I said. I would not miss it for anything. Great. I have a table reserved. You can sit with me and some of my colleagues. Actually, I have my own table, but I will make sure to pay close attention during your speech. The night before the dinner, I could not sleep, not from nerves, from anticipation. I reviewed the presentation one more time on my laptop, every slide perfect, every fact documented, every lie exposed. Everything was ready. He had no idea what was coming. Would you have the patience to wait for the perfect moment, or would you confront them immediately? The Riverside Community Center ballroom was beautiful that night. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, floral centerpieces on every table. 200 people in evening wear, cocktails in hand, celebrating the county's most distinguished business leaders. My father stood near the bar, holding court with a group of admirers. He was wearing the tuxedo I had paid for, tailored perfectly, making him look distinguished and successful. Every few minutes, someone would shake his hand, congratulate him on the award. He would smile, modest and grateful, and say something about how rewarding it was to mentor the next generation. I watched him from my table. Rachel sat beside me, her hand on my arm. "You okay?" she whispered. "Perfect," I said, and I meant it. Dinner was served, salmon with roasted vegetables. I barely touched mine. Across the room, my father ate with enthusiasm, laughing at jokes, completely at ease. At 8:15, the program began. The MC, a woman named Margaret who ran the Chamber of Commerce, welcomed everyone and began presenting the awards. Small Business Owner of the Year, Entrepreneur of the Year. Each recipient walked to the stage, accepted their trophy, gave a short speech. Then Margaret said, "And now, for our final award of the evening, the Business Mentor of the Year, recognizing an individual who has demonstrated exceptional dedication to guiding and developing emerging business talent in our community." My father was already standing, buttoning his jacket. This year's recipient has been described by colleagues as a visionary strategist, a patient teacher, and the quiet force behind several of our region's most successful enterprises. Please join me in congratulating Robert Hartwell. The applause was thunderous. My father walked to the stage, shaking hands along the way, his face glowing with pride. He accepted the crystal trophy, posed for photos, and stepped up to the microphone. "Thank you," he began. "This is truly an honor. You know, when I think about mentorship, I think about the responsibility we have to share what we have learned, to guide others not just with advice, but with genuine investment in their success." He was so convincing, so sincere. I have had the privilege of working with many talented individuals over the years, but I am especially proud of my work with Sterling Consulting Group. Watching that company grow from a simple idea into a multi-million-dollar enterprise has been one of the great joys of my career. Rachel gripped my hand under the table. "My daughter Jennifer is here tonight," my father continued, gesturing toward my table. "Jenny, stand up." Every head turned toward me. I stood slowly, smiled, and nodded. The audience applauded. I sat back down. "Jenny will tell you that success does not come easy," my father said. "It takes hard work, yes, but it also takes wisdom, experience. Someone who has been through the battles and can help you avoid the mistakes. That is what mentorship really means. And I am honored that this community recognizes the value of that contribution." He went on for another 3 minutes, thanking the committee, sharing anecdotes about business wisdom, positioning himself as the humble sage who shaped others' success. "And now," Margaret said, retaking the microphone, "we have a special surprise. Jennifer Hartwell has prepared a tribute video for her father. Robert, if you would like to remain on stage, let us dim the lights." My father beamed. He actually put his hand over his heart, touched by this gesture from his grateful daughter. The lights went down. The projector screen descended behind him. The first slide appeared. It was a title card in simple white text on black background. "The Real Story of Sterling Consulting Group." I watched my father's smile falter slightly. Confusion crossed his face. The second slide was a photograph of me at 32 years old, sitting in my spare bedroom office with my first laptop. The caption read, "Jennifer Hartwell, founder and sole proprietor, started with $0 in investment. No partners, no investors, no business advisors." The room was very quiet now. The third slide was a bank statement, my account, a wire transfer to Robert Hartwell for $10,000. Date, March 2007. Below it, another transfer, $15,000, June 2007. My father turned to look at the screen. His face went pale. The slides continued, statement after statement, year after year. The amounts highlighted in bright yellow, $22,000, $18,000, $35,000, each one labeled with what it paid for: roof repairs, country club membership, vehicle down payment, medical bills. "Jennifer," my father said into the microphone, his voice tight. "What is this?" I stood up. My legs were steady. My voice was calm. "It is the truth, Dad." The next slide was a split screen. On the left, a newspaper article from 2012 with the headline, "Local Business Mentor Shares Secrets of Success." The quote highlighted, "I helped develop the organizational framework that made Sterling Consulting Group possible." On the right, my bank statement from that same month showing a $28,000 payment to him for property taxes. Margaret tried to intervene. "I think there has been some kind of mistake with the—" "There is no mistake," I said clearly. "Please let it continue." The presentation rolled on. $601,000 in total payments. 23 separate instances of my father publicly claiming credit for building my company. $0 he ever invested. 0 hours he ever worked. 0 business connections he ever provided. The final slide was simple. Just text. Robert Hartwell did not build Sterling Consulting Group. He did not mentor me. He did not invest in my company. He did not provide business guidance. What he did was accept money and take credit. For 20 years, I paid his bills while he told everyone that my success was his achievement. Today, you know the truth. The lights came back up. My father was shaking. His face had gone from pale to red. He gripped the podium like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "This is... Jennifer, you are twisting things. I did help you. Maybe not financially, but with advice, with guidance. You cannot quantify..." "I can quantify it, Dad. I just did. $601,000. That is what I can quantify." People were whispering now. I could see Uncle Robert at my table, tears streaming down his face, nodding. My father's voice turned pleading. "You are doing this because you are angry, because of the cancer, because you are emotional. This is not who you are." "You are right," I said, and my voice carried across the silent ballroom. "This is not who I was. I was the person who stayed quiet while you lied, who paid your bills while you stole my achievements, who made myself invisible so you could feel important. But I am not that person anymore." I walked toward the stage, slowly, everyone watching. 2 weeks before my cancer surgery, I heard you on the phone with your friend Jim. You were talking to lawyers about how to claim my company if I became incapacitated, if I died. You were not worried about me. You were worried about making sure you got what you called rightfully yours. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. So I decided to make sure everyone knew what was rightfully whose. "This trophy?" I gestured to the award in his hands. "You can keep it. Consider it payment for finally teaching me the most valuable lesson of my life, that I do not need your approval. I do not need your pride. I do not need anything from you at all." The room was absolutely silent. My father tried one more time. His voice cracked. "Jennifer, please, not like this. I am your father. We can talk about this privately. You do not have to humiliate me in front of everyone." I looked at him standing there, this man who had spent 20 years humiliating me in front of everyone by erasing my achievements. "You humiliated yourself, Dad. I just made sure everyone could see it." I turned and walked back to my table. Rachel stood and hugged me. David put his hand on my shoulder. My team from Sterling was standing, all of them, and as I sat down, they started to applaud. Slowly, others joined. Not everyone. Some people sat in stunned silence. Some got up and left. But enough people understood. Enough people had been where I was. Enough people knew what it meant to finally tell the truth. My father stood on that stage, alone, holding his trophy, and for the first time in my life, I watched him understand what he had done. And it was only the beginning. Do you think he deserved what happened next? Or did I go too far? I left the awards dinner at 9:30. I did not wait to see what my father did after I walked off that stage. I did not need to. Rachel drove me home, and we sat in my kitchen drinking tea until midnight, not talking much, just being present with what had happened. When she finally left, I stood at my window looking out at the quiet street and felt something I had not felt in 20 years. Peace. Not happiness exactly, not vindication or triumph, just peace. The kind that comes from finally telling the truth and letting the consequences unfold as they will. The consequences came quickly. By the next morning, my phone had 37 missed calls, 16 from my father, 12 from numbers I did not recognize, 9 from people I had not spoken to in years. I did not answer any of them. What I did do was send a formal letter through David to the Riverside Chamber of Commerce. It stated that I had no desire to pursue legal action against the organization for honoring my father, but that I expected them to issue a public correction clarifying that Robert Hartwell had no professional relationship with Sterling Consulting Group and had never served as a business mentor, advisor, or consultant to my company. They published the correction 3 days later, small, buried on page 6 of their newsletter, but it was there. My father tried everything to reach me. Phone calls, emails. He showed up at my office twice. The first time, my assistant told him I was unavailable. The second time, I had David send a cease and desist letter. Then came the apology email, 3,000 words long. He was sorry I felt hurt, sorry I had misunderstood his intentions, sorry that my health situation had made me emotional, sorry that he had not been more clear about the informal advisory role he had played in my early business development. He was sorry for everything except the actual lies, the actual theft of credit, the actual 2 decades of financial exploitation. I deleted the email without responding. Uncle Robert called me a week after the dinner. He was the only family member I took a call from. I should have said something years ago, he told me, his voice heavy with regret. I saw what he was doing, the way he talked about you versus the way he talked to you. But he is my brother, and I kept hoping he would wake up and see what he had. It is not your fault, Uncle Robert. This was never your responsibility. No, but I am proud of you, Jenny. I want you to know that. Your mother would be so proud of you. My mother had died when I was 19. Sometimes I wondered if things would have been different if she had lived, if she would have seen what my father was doing and stopped it. But there was no point in wondering about that now. The financial support stopped immediately, of course. I closed the credit card I had given him for emergencies. I stopped all automatic transfers. I sent one final payment, a check for $5,000 with a note that said, "Final support payment. After this, you are on your own." He cashed it within 2 days. Within a month, he had to sell the Mercedes. Within 3 months, he let his country club membership lapse. I heard through Uncle Robert that he had moved to a smaller house, something he could afford on his retirement income without my subsidies. I felt nothing when I heard this. Not satisfaction, not guilt, just nothing. Marcus called 6 weeks after the dinner. I almost did not answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Jenny, what the hell did you do?" he said. "Dad is devastated. He is barely eating. He had to move. Everyone in town is talking about him." "Hello, Marcus. It is nice to hear from you, too." "I am serious. You destroyed him over some money. Family does not do this to family." "You are right," I said calmly. "Family does not lie about building your business while you pay their bills for 20 years. Family does not call lawyers to figure out how to claim your company while you are facing cancer surgery. Family does not do those things." Silence. He was going to what? Ask him yourself, or do not. I do not particularly care either way. Marcus did not call back. My company thrived. If anything, the public revelation strengthened my reputation. Clients appreciated that I had built everything myself. Potential hires respected the integrity it took to tell the truth, even when it cost me personally. Sterling Consulting Group grew by 18% that year. I finished my radiation treatment in December. Clean scans, excellent prognosis. My doctor said I could expect a full recovery and normal life expectancy. On the 6-month anniversary of the awards dinner, my father sent a letter, handwritten, 4 pages. He did not apologize for the lies, but he did, finally, acknowledge them. "I do not know when I started believing my own stories," he wrote. "Maybe it was easier than admitting that my daughter had surpassed anything I ever accomplished. Maybe I was jealous. Maybe I am just a weak man who needed to feel important. but you deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved a father who celebrated you instead of using you. I do not expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I finally see what I did." I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer. I did not write back. Maybe someday I would. Maybe someday I would be ready to have a conversation about rebuilding something new, something honest between us. But that day was not today, and I was okay with that. Forgiveness, I had learned, was not something you owed to people who hurt you. It was something you gave yourself when you were ready, and I was not ready. Maybe I never would be. What I had instead was clarity. The knowledge that my success was mine, that my achievements belonged to me, that I had built something real and valuable and entirely my own. I stood on that stage, in that moment when the projector screen lit up behind my father, and I took back my story, not with violence, not with cruelty, just with truth. And truth, I discovered, was the most powerful weapon I had ever wielded. My life now is simple. I run my company. I spend time with people who see me clearly and love me anyway. I travel. I donate to causes I believe in. I mentor young entrepreneurs who remind me of my younger self, and I make sure they know that their success belongs to them and no one else. Sometimes people ask me if I regret what I did at the awards dinner, if I wish I had handled it differently, more privately, more gently. I tell them no. My father spent 20 years building a public lie about who created my success. The only way to dismantle a public lie is with public truth. Was it painful? Yes, for both of us. But pain is not the same thing as wrong. I do not know what my father tells people now when they ask about me. I do not know if he has learned anything from what happened or if he simply resents me for exposing him. I do know that I sleep better now than I have in 20 years, that I look in the mirror and see someone who refused to disappear, someone who stood up and said, "No, this is my story. These are my achievements. This is my life." And no one, not even the man who gave me life, gets to take that away from me. So if your father took credit for your success while you paid his bills, if he made you feel invisible while he stood in your spotlight, if he called lawyers to claim what you built while you faced the hardest moments of your life alone, would you forgive and forget, or would you do what I did? Would you stay silent to keep the peace, or would you demand that the world finally know the truth? I chose truth, and I would choose it again, every single time.